Good evening, everyone. My name is Hussein Essof, and I'm with the Regent Business School in Johannesburg. And I'll be playing a role of just simply introducing tonight's panelists and what the webinar is expected to achieve. In case you logged on to the wrong webinar, this particular one is the Shaping Leadership webinar. We're hoping that this interactive discussion between our two panelists will be intensive, but the discussion we will look at issues around designing and implementation of leadership development strategies, processes, and practices. The focus areas which we hope to cover, among others, will be the changing world of leadership, leadership as a strategic imperative, defining leadership strategy and brand, the future world of work, modern organization, and organizations of the future. On screen with me are two of our panelists, the first being Tafatsua, who prefers to be called Tefi Mukaredzi, and he has over 15 years of leadership experience in a manufacturing, consulting, and technology sectors. He's a qualified industrial engineer and holds an MBA. He's currently completing his research for an MCOM in information systems and technology. In his current role, Tefi is responsible for guiding the technology transition into the digital era. Thank you for joining us, Tefi.
Thank you, Hussein. Thank you.
Our next
speaker.
Welcome
to the panelists, to the delegates.
Thank you very much. Our next panelist is Kyle Chetty. Kyle is no stranger to Regent. We have a long association with Kyle. And Kyle has 10 years of experience in the HR industry. He's currently the HR executive and certified Gallup coach. Kyle won the Young CHRO, Kyle will explain to us what CHRO is just now, of the Year Award for 2020, and was a finalist in the Future of HR Awards for HR Directors for the year and the Best HR Strategy. People Hum has named him one of the top 100 most inspirational leaders of 2021. Congratulations on all of that, Kyle, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the panelists and welcome to all the delegates. And yes, to answer your question, the CHRO is Chief HR Officer, and it was award given by the South African CHRO organization for just displaying growth and the sort of contribution to the HR fertility in South Africa.
Fantastic. Okay, guys, I think I'm going to go to a black screen and I'm going to leave to the two of you to excite our members who've joined us this evening, and I'll see you possibly at the end of this 1 hour show. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Hussein, and good evening again to all the delegates. And thank you for making the time to join us on this webinar. We are going to really discuss what the leadership, what the landscape and the future of leadership looks like. So that, at the beginning, and not to be seen as being rude, usually we struggle with bandwidth for some of the delegates. So what I'm going to do is, once I start sharing my screen with the slides, I'm going to switch off my video just to make sure that we don't have any technology issues as we're going along. So I think the topic has been discussed. We've got 6 sort of modules or sections that we're going to be taking you through, myself and Kyle. I will take you through the first 3 of those, which is the changing world of leadership. I'll also take you through strategic imperatives for great leadership, and I'll just touch on the modern organization and what that looks like. And then I'll hand you over to Kyle, who's going to take you through the workforce, what the workforce of 2030 should look like, and what, you know, as a leader, some of the challenges that you will have to face by 2030, so that you can start thinking about how you're going to upskill yourself in order for you to be able to deal with some of those challenges. And then Kai will also then try and paint a picture of what leadership looks like in the future. So the world is changing, and as leaders, we must be bold to embrace that change. And as the slide kind of encapsulates, you can't cross the sea by merely standing and staring at the water. But in order for us to be bold, there are certain capabilities that we need to think about. And some of these, you know, are curiosity, digital capabilities, and learning agility are just some of the competencies that leaders need to work on as they navigate through the uncertainties of the new reality of work. So change is an often spoken about concepts. You know, we all talk about change, we all talk about change is the new constant, but do we really understand what it is? I've got a quote here which says, which kind of summarizes it for me. And change is a great blessing, right, that brings in new opportunities. And this then coupled with leadership, which says leadership is a privilege to make this changing world a better place. So in there, you realize that the challenge for every leader is to understand when and what change or disruption is coming, and to develop and support their people to embrace those changes and proactively improvise on methods and approach to work. So what are these, what are some of these attributes, you might ask, that leaders need to hone in the present and for the future? As I said right up front, you know, curiosity. And we find that a childlike curiosity to know more about things, question and probe to understand deeper and to anticipate what may occur, helps people discover and explore various paths. It is important to have dialogues and conversations with stakeholders. Meaningful conversations fosters collaboration, helps build new perspectives, and brings teams closer. Networking, which is the job of a leader, helps to make connections and generate enthusiasm and develop better engagement, learning new things, and as a platform for sharing knowledge and ideas. The most important fact about curiosity for leadership is that it helps to understand others better and removes biases. It helps to understand the context and enables trust building. Leaders must be creative and show innovation, because creativity and innovation is needed to thrive in these changing scenarios. Creativity and innovation go hand in hand. Without creativity, innovation is not possible. And to innovate, creativity is the key ingredient. Leaders who are creative are able to view problems from various angles and scenarios whereby they're able to drive productivity and also foster success of projects within organizations. Building a culture of creativity also helps in exploring new avenues, inspires people to follow the passions, and helps to unlock potential. To build a workforce within the uncertainties and the ambiguities, leaders must be resilient. Leaders who practice resilience are able to maintain a positive attitude and sustain their energy levels under pressure. They're able to bounce back during periods of turbulence. They have the ability to find ways to move forward and avoid getting stuck. They're able to articulate effectively on what needs to be done to others. Most importantly, resilient leaders have the ability to create strong teams by developing positive relationships built on a foundation of trust. Right up front, I had mentioned the need that, leaders need to be bold, particularly in these changing times. And this is the fourth element that I'm going to speak to, which is bold risk-taking and decision-making. These are two attributes leaders have to focus on. Uncertainty brings a lot of apprehensions, and these apprehensions of fear keeps people from taking the very actions that will enable them to excel in the longer term. We're caught in some kind of paralysis because we're not sure whether we're going to make the right decision or not. To be able to take that leap of faith, leaders should have the willingness to act amid uncertainties and to also act without copious amounts of information. In order for us to navigate this, thought leadership is another important skill to be developed during uncertain times. It helps leaders to understand the present and imagine the future, to create meaning, to build game-changing customer experiences, influence people around in a positive manner, provide guidance, and inspire innovation. It allows leaders to build reputation and credibility, and also to learn more about the industries that they work with. And on this particular point, I'm reminded of how Elon Musk has become one of those thought leaders. And right now, whatever he says, whether it's around green energy or it's around cryptocurrency or going into space, there are people who will follow and are waiting for him to make that comment to provide some kind of direction. So it just shows you that if you're able to create, if you have that vision and you're controlling the narrative in terms of what thoughts and what people are talking about, you're providing that vision. We speak about the fourth industrial revolution that we find ourselves in. So it stands to reason that digital capabilities become a driving factor in this digital age. Being adept with digital capabilities enables leaders to focus on innovation culture and to foster end-to-end collaboration. Developing digital capabilities enables leaders to standardize and automate processes to generate new insights which can be leveraged. This attribute helps leaders to drive changes in the organization, challenges cultural barriers that get in the way of transformation efforts. They're able to engage people to think in creative and innovative ways. Being digitally capable also helps leaders to think differently, focusing on situations holistically and seek to find better possibilities. A great characteristic of many a leader is empathy. And this is a great skill which every leader needs to practice. While this skill enables leaders to understand people better and to respond in the best manner possible, it also encourages leaders to understand the root cause of poor performance or why people are struggling in specific areas. You've gone and you've hired a great person, they've performed, they're well qualified, but somehow they start struggling once they get into that position. It is up to the leader to guide that person through whatever it is that they may be going through. It's up to the leader to improve and excel that particular individual. Leaders are able to develop relationships with all stakeholders when they are empathetic. Another great skill is learning agility, and this helps leaders to explore and learn from unfamiliar experiences. And these learnings, and those learnings to new environments. In the area of flux and change that we've spoken about, past performance do not guarantee success or positive future outcomes. Leaders who have a high learning ability are known to be proactively seeking for feedback, discovering various patterns within unfamiliar situations, and actively seeking out to resolve the new challenges. In this uncertain world, as leaders, the greatest value comes when we accept that we do not know the answer to all questions. The willingness to accept it as a challenge, to seek and explore ways to address these challenges, and developing the various skills to respond will enable today's leaders to navigate through current and future times. So what do we need to, what constitutes, great leadership, and what are those imperative things that a great leader must display? So one thing that we have to note is that becoming a leader, a great leader, is an evolutionary process. The best leaders are lifelong learners and take total ownership of their continuous improvement. And while many high-performing organizations out there have droves of solid managers, many still lack great leaders at every level. And a great example of leadership is found in the US Navy SEALs. In the Navy SEAL teams, the philosophy is that everyone leads on the battlefield, regardless of rank or tenure, i.e. how long they've been in the Navy SEALs. Decision-making is decentralized, so teams closest to the enemy can move at the speed war requires while still being supported by battlefield commanders, keeping their eye on the big picture. Leadership in today's modern business landscape requires different skills than organizations of the past. The environment and the workforce have evolved and will continue to do so, which means we as leaders must be in a constant state of self-awareness and improvement. There's 7 strategic imperatives for great leadership, as shown on the slide that I have before you. So the first one, which for me is probably, personally, I find very, very important. It's about coaching and not commanding. It is not uncommon that people in management positions have been promoted or hired based on track record, subject matter expertise, or how long they've been with the organization, which speaks to their experience. Sometimes all of the above. Often, they have been a top performer within a division, a department, a section of the organization. So the obvious move when a vacancy exists is to place them in charge of that section, division, or department. What is frequently overlooked, however, is their actual ability to lead, coach, mentor, and inspire others to take action and achieve results. Usually these are people who know how to do their jobs and they do them very well. However, today's manager has to have the ability to lead. This is because it has a direct impact on the team's level of engagement. And as most of us know, the data still points to the fact that only about 34% of an organization's employees are truly engaged, the rest being passively or actively disengaged. While it's nice to think that all employees in an organization emotionally connect to the overall culture, values, and vision, it is more typical that they more closely associate with the subculture and tone their direct manager sets, which means coaching is an imperative skill for managers. How do managers learn the skill? Simple, by investing in their own coaching, mentoring, and leadership development. And research shows that in the highest performing organizations, senior leaders invest time and resources in enhancing their managers across the board within an organization and enhancing their managers' ability to lead. Adaptation without chaos. So the ability to adapt is critical on the battlefields of both combat and in business. But what we often see is leaders creating an environment of competing priorities and constantly shifting goals as opposed to true adaptation. This creates chaos, confusion, and misalignment on what the goals and priorities need to be, especially when the why hasn't really been communicated. High performers being managed this way will often take on all the new initiative, which leads to total burnout and high turnover. Great leaders create alignment around the vision and mission, and only course correct when the data and the external factors require it. When do they make the decision to adapt to the changing, when they do make the decision to adapt to the changing landscape, they enlist the feedback from the team, they develop adjusted battle plans, they ensure total alignment, remove barriers, deprioritize other goals as needed, and execute. Everyone knows why the change is happening, and the buy-in has been created. This eliminates the chaos and confusion factors and increases engagement and action. So you will be setting up your team for success. There's nothing as frustrating as having a high-performing team. You don't create a platform where they can operate, and whatever initiative you then throw at them, they're not able to succeed. So you need to ensure that these steps do happen. And often underestimated skill or underrated skill is that of communication. And we speak of versatile communication. This seems obvious when developing leaders, but what does this really mean? It breaks down into 3 areas: emotional intelligence, adapting to different styles, and understanding motivation theories. The best leaders spend time understanding what motivates their team, as well as their preferred communication styles. This requires a heightened level of emotional intelligence, self-awareness, self-management, relationship management, and social awareness. They also know how to adapt their communication to the situation. They can quickly read the landscape and reading the room and have control over their emotions. These skills do not come easy, which is why the best leaders make a point to work on these behavioral necessities frequently. Fostering psychological safety. And this has to be a shared belief that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. It can be defined as being able to show and employ oneself without fear of negative consequences of self-image, status, or career. In psychologically safe teams, team members feel accepted and respected. It is the most studied enabling condition in group dynamics and team learning research. In the SEAL teams, everyone has a voice, regardless of rank. It is a critical part of after-action review processes, feedback loops, and learning culture. People must be able to openly speak about the jobs and the environment that they're working in without fear of victimization and reprisal. The best leaders foster this environment, thereby getting the most out of their people. Balance centralized and decentralized controls. So you have to create a balance. In any high-performing team, there are times when leadership and decision-making must either be centralized or decentralized. Centralized decisions support longer-term goals, solidarity, and consistency. But when speed of execution is required, decentralized decisions make more sense. Decentralization creates a culture where autonomy thrives and engagement soars to new heights. But hang on, before you run off and delegate a bunch of stuff to a bunch of people, there are a few key fundamental elements that we require, right? There's leadership ability. You have to assess the leadership ability of the person that you're going to be delegating to. You have to assess the skill, and you have to assess whether they have the right resources. We can't create an authentic environment or autonomy without setting the team up for success. Those we lead must have the skills and resources available to execute. I spoke earlier on about the need to create that environment so that your team has every chance of success. They also need a psychologically safe environment because mistakes will be made. And if you've been in leadership long enough, you will know that mistakes are bound to happen. When great leaders decide to decentralize decisions or projects and things don't turn out as planned, they allow the team or individual to stay the course. This is where coaching comes back into play. They don't take that project or decision away because they know that destroys trust, morale, and engagement. Leaders need to create a culture of accountability. And the best leaders that understand that accountability is the most critical cultural pillar for any team. Accountability starts at the top when great leaders take total ownership over the team's failures and push praise down to the chain of command. A culture of accountability is achieved when everyone embraces the team's guiding principles, behavioral expectations, and abides by clearly defined accountability mechanisms, all of which are designed to achieve specific results. And guess what? This actually improves the morale, engagement, performance, and you just have to look at your bottom line. You will see the results in the profitability. Build trust from the bottom up, from the top and the bottom. One of the cultural pillars of elite teams is trust. This is very, very important. It is key and it is vital. And it goes both ways. Sure, leaders at the top have to be able to trust those beneath them so that they know that when they ask them to do a task, they're able to deliver. But in the highest functioning teams, trust is strongest from the bottom up. All research points to the fact that top organizations saw a high degree of trust in leadership due to servant leadership, consistency, communication, and follow through. The organization must trust its leaders. The two areas trust impacts most in any organization are productivity and employee engagement. And since we've established that engagement is both a challenge and an opportunity for leaders, why not make trust building a key strategic imperative in any organization? So why do we need all of these key skills that we've spoken about that make, for great leadership? Well, the organization is changing and we have to deal with the modern organization. And the question is, what comes to your mind when you think of a modern organization? Is it just the one that we read about in books with bean bags, nap nooks, and a ping pong table, or any organization that allows you to maintain a work and life balance with flexible timings, workstations, awards, and recognition, and the one that allows you to pursue your dreams and interests alongside your job? Today, most of the new firms are looking beyond traditional norms and are offering space for employees to adapt more quickly, learn more rapidly, and embrace dynamic career choices. While most of the young leaders understand that talent is the key factor for a company's success, they equally believe that it is important to keep all employees on top of their game to peak their performance and to get desired results. These new age firms are working closely with their employees and customizing their jobs and organizations' policies in order to make them feel appreciated and valued. Sounds easier said than done, but here's how, right? There's the lean hierarchy model. Modern organizations are following a flat structure. The firms are not hierarchy driven and employees are more concerned about the work assigned to them rather than designations and hierarchy. It's not about seniority, it's not about getting to the top. It's really about, if I'm given a task, I have to perform my task to the best of my ability and deliver it. These days, organizations are looking beyond hierarchy and every employee, from senior level managers to executives and staff members are given the opportunity to communicate effectively with CEOs and CTOs of the firm without having to go through intermediaries. This leads to faster decision-making as everybody is connected to everyone and is easily accessible to all. Teamwork, again, sounds like a cliche, it's often spoken about, but in the modern organization, each team member has a unique skill set, which is constantly changing. The experience level and education qualifications may vary. However, at a time of crisis, what if these skill sets of different teams are combined to yield fruitful results? Although individual productivity is essential, working in a team results in quicker results and enables solving complex issues seamlessly. An organization that follows a flat structure is able to deliver productive work faster as compared to firms that follow traditional approaches. How do they do this? Well, flat structures eliminate cubicles and demarcation between senior and junior staff members. All teams are easily accessible and well connected with each other, which enable them to easily communicate, cooperate, and be supportive of one another. Flexibility. Unlike traditional organizations that are rigid and follow strict HR practices and policies, modern organizations look to innovating and bring newer methods to change their workflow. Rather than making their employees follow a monotonous schedule or a 9-to-6 job, the new age firms look at offering flexible working hours, lenient leave policies, part-time or off-peak hours, workstation, and many other incentives. Traditional organizations are slightly conservative and they follow traditional rules and regulations. There are many solutions that companies can explore in order to create a more flexible work atmosphere. Depending on the type of position and responsibility, the firm could frame a flexible strategy that will fit nearly every employee's needs. Often traditional organizations follow a fixed protocol of maintaining policies to protect any kind of risk that hamper the function of an organization or its employees. This is all done in the name of risk management. However, this leads to employees thinking twice before taking any risks, forcing them to get used to the day-to-day grind. However, modern organizations are more relaxed and encourage employees to take new challenges and make meaningful progress in their work. This enables employees to experiment and face risks instantly without them having to second guess themselves and getting caught up in paralysis by analysis. Employee morale. Employee morale has the ability to break a company's success. Unlike traditional firm, a modern organization values its employees and does not wait to conduct an annual review to reward employees. Performance appraisals are conducted frequently, along with other employee morale boosting activities. They are motivated to push the boundaries and develop positive attitude towards work. For firms, it is essential to nurture the holistic well-being of their employees so that they feel that their work is more than just a job. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Kyle, who's going to speak a little bit more on this topic and leading to the organization of the future. Kyle, over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Taffy, for that insightful information. I think particularly I really enjoyed the imperatives for great leadership. I thought that for me was really some thought-provoking sort of conversations that we could take back into the office. With that being said, we would like to engage with you as much as possible. So if there's anything that you'd like to share from a question perspective, you're very welcome to put it in the comments and the chat section, as well as, we'll get to some of those things afterwards. So I'm going to take you through the future world of work. I'm not sure if you can see my screen. If you can just give me some indication, that would be great. I'm also just going to turn my video off, if that's okay, primarily because there's some bandwidth issues, and we're going to be also sharing a video just now. And some of you might experience some freezing in terms of the bandwidth. So we'll just be able to share that a bit later as well. So with that being said, let's go through, or continuing from the topic of the modern organization. It's really interesting to see that we are living through such a fundamental transformation in the world of work. And if we just had to think of what has happened in the last 2 years, and I know many of us are tired of hearing it, but we've seen how the world of work has changed. Now, automation, and as we call it, like thinking machines, are really replacing certain human tasks and jobs and are changing the skills that organizations are looking for in their people. Now, this momentous change and the skills in the organizations of what we have is changing drastically, okay? And this sort of has, I would say, rise and faces sort of huge emphasis on, organizational, talent, HR changes. And at a time when business leaders are already wrestling with unprecedented risk, disruption, and political and social upheaval, the pace of change is actually accelerating. Now, competition for the right talent is fierce, and talent no longer means the same as it did 10 years ago. Okay. Many roles, skills, job titles of tomorrow are unknown to us as we sit here today. And how can organizations prepare for a future that only a few of us can actually design? And how will your talent needs change? How will you be able to attract and keep and motivate your employees as a leader? And how do you shape your leadership DNA? Now, this isn't a time to sit back and wait for the world of events to unfold. You need to be prepared for the future, and you have to understand what the future holds. And our message for leaders is simple. It's act now. This isn't about some far future of work, okay? Change is here, it's already happening, and it's accelerating, okay? No regrets and no bets. The future isn't a fixed destination. You need to plan for a dynamic rather than a static future. You'll need to reorganize, multiple sort of an evolving scenarios. You sort of cannot have any regret moves, because you need to make your moves based on the scenario. And at some times, you might also need to not make some bets like we will do now. Okay. With that also being said, we need to now own the automation debate. And we know that automation and artificial intelligence will affect sort of every level of business, and it's already doing that, and it's affecting our people as well. And it's too, sort of an important issue that we can't just, pass this on to HR or pass this on to IT. A depth of understanding and keen insight into the changing technology and landscape is really a must for all of us. The second last one I really want to talk about is people and not jobs. And here we're saying that organizations can't protect jobs which are made redundant by technology, but what they do have is a responsibility to the people. So protect people, not jobs. Nurture agility, adaptability, allow for reskilling in the workforce, okay? Build a clear narrative. And a third of workers are anxious, really about the future and their job due to automation and technology. And there's anxiety that is actually killing the confidence and willingness to innovate. So how do you as a leader, help your employees and the business today? So, it's really about how do we start this mature conversation about the future and get our employees thinking about the future and ready for this? And how do we as leaders need to reshape our DNA? How do we incorporate some of these things that are going to happen in the world of work and in the next decade that we see? So I just want to take you through, some findings that we've seen from the studies. Okay, so the future of work is asking us to consider some of the biggest questions in our age. Okay, and what influence will the continuing march of technology, automation, and artificial intelligence have on where we work and how we work? Okay, and we've seen some of this, recently, where many of us have adopted a work from home policy or hybrid working, and so forth. So many leaders are focusing on technology, and what we are seeing that the role that automation is predicted to have on our jobs in the workplace. Now, this is less about technological innovation and more about the manner in which humans decide to actually use technology. Now, the shape that the workforce of the future takes will be the result of this complex, changing, and competing forces that we have. And some of these forces are certain, but at the speed of which they unfold is very hard to predict. Now, you may see a lot of information on your screen, and these slides will be shared with you so you can go through them when you have the time. So in interest of time and to save you the boring detail, we're just going to go through a little bit quicker through this, but you'll be able to see some of this and go through much detail on your own. But we know that automation, robotics, and artificial intelligence is advancing quickly and dramatically and changing the nature and number of jobs we have available. We see that older workers will need to learn new skills and work for longer. We see by 2030, the UN projects that 4.9 billion people will be urban dwellers. And by 2050, the world's urban population will have increased by 72%. Now, emerging nations have the biggest challenge as technology increases the gulf with the developing world. Unemployment, migration will continue, and we see this significant and sustained investment. There's a great demand on energy and water, and this is seen to increase by at least 40 and 50% respectively in the next 10 years. Okay, if you joined one of our webinars last year, we spoke a huge great deal around megatrends, and here we see that in the next 10 years, or in this case, the next 8 years, we see that the megatrends are the tremendous forces that is actually reshaping society. And with it, it's the world of work and the economic shifts that are redistributing power, wealth, competition, and opportunity around the globe. And this is sort of disruptive innovations. It's used with radical thinking, new business models, and this is impacting every sector. And as leaders, we need a clear and meaningful purpose and mandate to attract and retain employees, our customers, and our partners in the decade ahead. So PwC has, put through a study, and it was something that I really wanted to share with you because it actually talks to us about the 4 worlds of work in 2030. And what we see here that, there's a yellow world, which is focused more on the humans come first. And here we're actually seeing, a lot around, social first, community sort of focused. There's a lot more search and meaning with relevance to a social heart. We're seeing, artisans, makers, and we're seeing sort of new worker glides thrive. And here the essence of the yellow world is more about humanness, and we'll talk a little bit about that. The next, we've got the red world, and this is particularly focuses more on technology, innovation, and creating more of a digital world and a digital platform. We then look at the green world, and this is really more, yes, you guessed it, about our social responsibility. How do we focus more on climate change and sustainability and so forth? And then the blue world is really around our, sort of the corporate kings that we have, and how do these people remain relevant? So I just want to go through a little detail with you here, but you would see, on the next 4 slides, we talk about this world or the 4 different worlds. And something that I wanted to focus on here is who leads the people strategy, what does the workforce look like, and what are some of the organizational changes? Now, you're probably asking, why am I sharing this with you? Because as a leader, you need to understand what does this world of work looks like, and if you want to grow in leadership and aspire to assume leadership positions, you will need to know how do you adapt to these situations? How do you embrace this? What skills do you need to develop in order to become a leader within the next decade? So coming back to the red world, we see this is a perfect incubator for innovation. We look at new products and business models develop at lightning speed, far more quickly than regulators can control. We really see here that technology encourages the creation of what we call powerful, like-minded, and cross-border social bubbles. Now, businesses innovate to create personalization, and they find new ways to actually serve these niches in the market. There's high reward on offer for those ideas and skills, and best meet with the companies that consumers want. But in a world with very few rules and risks are high, today's winning businesses could actually be tomorrow's court cases. If we look at the blue world, we here see that companies, see their size and influence as the best way to protect or protect their sort of profit margins against the competition and from their peers. We see that corporations grow to such a scale and exert such influence that they will actually become more powerful than some smaller nations. Success here is depending on a productive workforce, as large companies compete for the best talent, and they really push past the limits of human ability by really investing in automation, technology, medication, and implants to actually give people to live at the edge. If we look at the green world, we see that corporate responsibility isn't just a nice to have, it's a business imperative. Here we really see that companies are open to collaborative organizations and see themselves as playing as an essential role in developing their employees and supporting local communities. Okay. Now, with this, we're also seeing that this is categorized by a strong social constants, cosines. We're seeing that there's a sense of environmental responsibility. We're looking a lot on the focus on diversity, human rights, fairness of all kinds, and a recognition that a business has an impact that goes beyond just a financial mean, but it's really about having a place where there's a societal purpose. Okay. Last but not least is really what we're looking at, which is the yellow world, where workers and companies seek out greater meaning and relevance to what they do. Here, there's a strong desire of fairness in distribution of wealth, resources, and privilege drives public policy. And this is leading to increased government intervention and consumers and workers voting with their feet. And here we also see that workers are finding flexibility and fulfillment. Working for organizations, it's not just now about working for means to an end to get a paycheck. It's really about what is the strong social and ethical record that I'm gelling to? What is this business fragmentation or this desire to do good, which is a common goal? So basically what I'm trying to say here, this is no longer regulated by a concept of I have a good job or I have a decent work. We're actually moving away from this employer-employee relationship and saying, how do we work together in this collaborative world? Okay, next up, I am going to share a video with you. Depending on your bandwidth, you may see it freeze a little bit at the first part of it, but there is some music that plays first, so hopefully it will go through. I'm sorry if it doesn't play correctly on your side. We have tested it, so it seems to work fine. So hopefully, your bandwidth wouldn't give you that much of a problem.
What kind of leadership style needed for the future work in the era of technology and disruption of the business?
So I love this question because this is what my next book is about. And I specifically wanted to look at what does the leader of the future look like? What does the leader of 2030 look like? And so a lot of the skills and a lot of the mindsets, I had to interview 140 CEOs of companies around the world to try to understand what are these skills and mindsets for the future leader. And you're just going to have to wait to read the book. No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do that to you. So some of the different leadership styles, for one, you need to be much more open to getting out of the ivory tower. The future leader cannot just sit in isolation in their ivory tower. The future leader must spend more time with employees across all levels on the ground floor. The future leader must also encourage employees to challenge them, to question them, to provide new ideas and feedback. It's a very different type of leadership style where instead of a pyramid, it's kind of a reverse pyramid, and the leader now sits at the bottom and is trying to push and lift everybody else up. So future leaders need to be much more comfortable with getting out of the ivory tower, with being challenged, with being questioned, and with spending more time with people who are less senior than them. That's very high level.
Athena and I hope you enjoyed that. If you want
All right, guys. So with that being said, we're almost at the end, but what I really want to just focus on maybe for the next minute or so is really, we've looked at what does the future of leadership look like, but what are some of the challenges that the future leader of 2030 is going to face? Now, 2030 is about 8 years away. If we look at humanize, we're saying that we lead diverse teams, we reskill and upskill, we attract and retain, we focus on doing good, and we make the organization human. So there's two elements here that we are looking at. We are looking at, the humanizing elements of where we want this, the workforce that we bring into the organization to feel that they are part of something. It's not just about an employee number. It's, how do you contribute to this organization? How do we bring you in? And then when we're talking about the futurization, we're looking at, do we have short-term, long-term thinking? Are we able to adapt to technology? And, we always use Kodak as this perfect example. How do we keep up with the pace of change? And how do we actually move away from the status quo? How do we start thinking, outside of the box? And we've seen, such a big rise in terms of new business creation just in South Africa alone in the last 2 years, basically on the fact that when COVID had put people into difficult situations, how out of the box thinking, was really something that they've used, to find means to an end in terms of gaining more income. Some people left their jobs to fulfill their passion and is succeeding through this. So these are some of the challenges that leaders that we will face. And we will need to, one, embrace these challenges, but know how to move past them. All right, so here we are, we're almost at the end, and we know that we are facing increasing levels of exponential change in the future. We will need to keep pace with these changes in technology and expectations of living in an advanced digital world where we will take less to do more. We know that jobs will change as technology starts to take over key roles that can easily be done by robots. And we know that bots and the digital infrastructure is here, so we need to embrace it. With this also comes a much younger, more tech-savvy generation who will be, sort of more inclined to the technology around them. There will be new types of jobs that will require a different set of skills. Now, undoubtedly, existing skills will become increasingly redundant, and leaders will have to navigate the expectations of their people based on this new landscape of determined and supply or interchangeable skills. Now, we've seen that driverless cars will now take us more to work and to and from the offices, and there'll be less need for us to actually be in the office. So when in the office, workers really will be, what we're seeing now with a lot of these big companies, it's more like campuses. They're promoting wellness, they're catering to retail needs, they're using a hot desk system. So as always, the future of world or the future world, is going to be changing a lot of the demands, and new leadership will be required to ensure that we continue to strive through this. One of the next things I want to really talk about is that great leaders of the future will need to be the best facilitators in the virtual world. And what do I mean by this? What I'm trying to say is that we need to connect people with ideas instead of telling people how to do a job and how they should be working. Future generations of employees will be expected to be treated like leaders. We need to be able to trust our people and give them the independence. We cannot have this command and controlling leadership, because this sort of style will eventually be phased out, and a natural selection of new generations will have a style of leadership that is a product of how they see the world. And this style will be empowering in a fast-paced working environment. This will not happen overnight. However, the new generation of leaders will be better educated at an early age to understand how that they get the most out of their people. How do you treat them like leaders? How can they be trusted? And how do we actually use technology through this? And I can tell you now, I have a 5-year-old daughter and she's in school and she's already learning computer science and robotics at 5 years old. So I cannot imagine what will happen in the next 5 to 10 years on how technology is coming through this. And with that also being said, is that we need to move away from a static competency model, because what we're saying that this push on leadership autonomy across the workplace will see us moving from a sort of static competency model to new models of leadership based on leadership success factors. Now, leadership success factors, will focus on what does good look like? How do we bring the best talent into the organization? How do we develop existing talent as a leader? Okay, and we're moving away from the checking of competence to one of trust and empowerment. And hopefully we will see the shift into all organizations. And we're now also going to see the movement or the shift away from a performance measurement or performance discussion. And now we're focusing on how do individuals actually add value to the organization. Now, leadership success factors will spread across the organization where individuals will understand what success means and associate it with what does good look like in this organization. And also giving them the freedom to express themselves through these success factors. These will be defined by each company with key, sort of commonalities such as emotional intelligence, learning agility, strategic thinking, resilience, and some of the key success factors that Taffy was alluding to early on through his presentation. We're also seeing that there's a big importance of place on neuro leadership and understanding humans. And here we're talking about how will leaders educate to understand the human brain, okay, and the body through this neuro leadership. We know that science is there, we know that technology is working and it's giving informed decisions, but how do we actually provide answers for working with the brain, if I may put it that way? Why do people act a certain way? Why do they behave in a certain way? And I think Taffy made mention of this, where we start doing more coaching in this place, okay? And this here is really about mindset of purpose, where people as leaders will know why they are there and what is this unique purpose that they are filling in the organization. The next thing I want to talk about is a direct link to the key skills that you will need. And in the future, it is possible that key skills will still be able, to download directly into the brain of individuals, which will already be competent. So it's really about positively stretching our skills, focusing on how do we develop the potential of people? How do we move them, to be the absolute best and help them to develop in areas in the workplace, as opposed to them just hitting performance targets. And leaders will also ask the questions and not search for answers or need to know everything. They have all been educated to search for the right answer to questions and problems. And this has impacted our creativity as we lose our imaginative nature, because there is no one correct answer. Logic teaches us this, that organizations are also set up to do the right thing and look for answers. And in some cases, this can create blame cultures, where when something goes wrong, there's a lot of finger pointing. But with technological advances, answers are becoming more and more accessible on our fingertips. We can search the internet and use Google to find answers, and to almost anything else. And the future successful leaders will be those who know how to ask the right questions and know where to get their answers from. There's also a huge balance that we need to look in the future of human versus digital, where we're saying that leaders must stay human in the digital world, be authentic with key recruitment drivers, but also who is a person who is equally as important as what a person can do with their brain, imagining sort of stress testing and looking at critical jobs in the organization. And we see that, robots are there, there's digital infrastructure that will take over in certain functions, but there will still be a need for some kind of human interaction. Now, as I wrap up, what I want to say and what I want to end off is that leaders will be expected to develop a culture of innovation and support their other leaders with the disruption to help make deep and meaningful connections through creativity, critical thinking, and learning agility. Being resilient and agile will be the key in a VUCA environment, which will only continue to unprecedented levels with the rapid speed of innovation and change in the world. And as we see the world and technology will change in the future, as our lives will be transformed, we naturally prefer to be in control of our own destiny, but the changes that are happening will disrupt and transform our lives anyway. So it's better to be on the onside with change than fight against it. And due to the speed of innovation across the world, the future is changing every day. In the short term, we will still see continuation of command and control style leadership in the workplace. But as with changes in the world, leadership will change potentially beyond recognition as new generations of the future reshape their leadership DNA for the world of tomorrow. So if you want to reshape your leadership DNA, what you need to do is you need to get ahead of the game now. You need to empower yourself, empower your people. You need to lead with trust. You need to ask meaningful and thought-provoking questions and help to connect to ideas. Treat your people like leaders, and tomorrow's future will come closer every day. Thank you so much for your time. I'm now going to hand over back to the moderator, who will go through some of the closing stuff. Thank you so much.
Tafi, is that my cue or yours?
It's your cue.
My cue.
Yes.
Kyle, what a fantastic presentation, and really deep and insightful. It was thoroughly enjoyable. And despite my gray hairs, I can tell you I've learned so much in this session of yours. And as you were going through it, I was trying to relate it not only personally to my own work environment, but thinking ahead, for example, to tomorrow and the state of the nation. And of course, the leader of our country, our honorable president, and of course, hopefully all of cabinet and I'm certain there were many gems that they could have taken away from your present. Really, Kyle, thank you. I'm not trying to what you call it, but really it was a fantastic presentation. And I think one way of measuring that, Kyle, is the consistency of the number of participants. If I look at that, we had on average just over 100 odd consistently, which is very odd for a webinar. You know, you'll see the dip and the rise. So really, Tafi, for facilitating from your side, and for raising the right questions, and Kyle, thank you for your input. I hope everyone else enjoyed themselves. I see some of the comments coming on screen. Thank you. Do I need to say more, guys? Any last words to you, Tafi?
No, thank you very much. It was just as enjoyable presenting from this side. And we really hope that, we've at least planted a seed in the delegates in terms of what they need to be doing. And I think they're coming to the right place. I think there's lots of stuff that region can offer them that will enable them to be able to start working on some of those skill sets that will help them, as Kyle says, get ahead of the game, start now, and then by the time it all comes, you are 2, 3, 4, 5 steps ahead. So thank you very much to the delegates for attending and staying on the webinar. It was very enjoyable. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of Region Business School, Kyle, thank you, and Tafi, thanks to you, and for everyone in the background who you can't see, for helping us to put this together. Until we meet again, adios.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.